Hello and welcome to First Chapter Friday. My name is Eva. I'm one of the librarians at the Alameda Free Library, and today I am going to be reading to you from Lincoln's Grave Robbers by Steve Sheinkin. This book is absolutely true about a group of gentlemen who decided that they wanted to steal the body of Abraham Lincoln. No, I'm not kidding. It's a great story about counterfeit and espionage and all kinds of really great stuff. And to prove it to you, I am going to read to you from the inside of the flap. It says, on October 20th, 1875, Secret Service agents raid the Illinois workshop of master counterfeiter Benjamin Boyd and arrest him. Soon after Boyd is hauled off to prison, members of his counterfeiting ring gather and devise a plan to get Boyd back. Steal Abraham Lincoln's body from its tomb, stash it in a secret location, and demand as ransom the release of Boyd and $200,000 in cash. The action in this true crime thriller alternates among the conspirators, the Secret Service agents on their trail, and the undercover double agent moving back and forth between the two groups. Along the way, get a glimpse into the inner workings of counterfeiting, grave robbing, detective work, and the early days of Secret Service. The plot moves toward a wild climax as robbers and lawmen converge at Lincoln's tomb on election night, 1876. Doesn't that sound great?
Okay, I've turned the camera around so that you will be able to see all of the illustrations that go along with the story of Lincoln's Grave Robbers by Steve Sheinkin. One of the things I like best about nonfiction is when they have lots of illustrations so you can really see what they're talking about. They've also included a cast of characters so you can look back to see who everyone is, because there are a lot of people involved in this story. And I'm going to start with the prologue. Midnight Escape. A passenger train rattled through the woods of western Pennsylvania late one summer night in 1864. In the rear car sat a man with a black beard. Iron shackles and chains bound his wrists and ankles. Armed guards sat on either side of him. The train was on its way to Washington, D.C. Pete McCartney was headed for the dreaded Old Capitol Prison, or so it appeared. The prisoner turned and looked through the open door at the rear of the car. Judging by the speed the train slid past moonlit clumps of trees, he figured they were doing 35 miles an hour, a bit fast for what he needed to do. He glanced at the guards, one seated beside him, another across the aisle. Each seemed lost in his own thoughts. McCartney sprang up. He stumbled and slid on short steps, chains clanking, down the aisle and through the open door. The guards dashed onto the platform just in time to see the prisoner dive over the side and smack the gravel slope along the tracks and disappear into the darkness. One of the soldiers lunged for the alarm cord strung along the side of the car. The steam whistle on the roof let loose an ear-splitting blast, and the train began screeching to a stop. "What is it?" asked a startled passenger. "McCartney has escaped," yelled one of the guards. "And who is McCartney?" "How has he escaped?" "Gone out at the car door," the guard shouted. "When?" "Now, this moment." "While the train was in motion?" asked a stunned conductor. "Confound that fellow," grunted one of the guards as he jumped from the slowing train. "Well, he's smashed every bone in his skin at all events," the other said as he jumped. They hurried back along the dark tracks, swinging lanterns, expecting to come quickly to the prisoner's mangled body. But there was no sign of him. "I was hurt, of course," McCartney later said of his midnight leap, "but I fled to the woods, waited till all was quiet and the train had gone, struggled along for hours, skulked and secreted myself, and with a stone finally smashed the iron shackles from my limbs." McCartney was hungry, bruised as a rotting apple, and lost somewhere in the forest far from home. But he wasn't going to jail, and that's all that mattered. This was far from his first escape. Pete McCartney was a counterfeiter, a connie man, as government agents called them. He'd been arrested many times for making and passing fake money, but had always found ways to wriggle free. McCartney busted out of one prison by patiently collecting foil from the insides of tobacco packages, melting the metal with a candle, and molding it into a key to his jail cell. Usually his method of escape was a lot simpler. He bought his way out. "I was always a cash man, you know," McCartney bragged. "I have paid away over $70,000, first and last, in good money to escape the clutches of the law." He wasn't sure he could bribe his way out of the old Capitol prison, which explains the dangerous train escape. "I was aware there was risk in jumping from the cars when the train was flying along at such a rate," he explained, "but then we have to take risks as we meet with them." After such a close call on the train, McCartney tried to go straight. He drifted back to his native Midwest and opened a photography studio. Then he moved to another town and bought a livery stable. Knowing the police were after him, he couldn't stay in one place. "I practiced dentistry for a while," he said, "but this was too slow for me." He even earned money as a traveling lecturer, giving talks on the art of detecting counterfeit currency. But the lure of easy money was too strong. He started counterfeiting again. "I shoved a good many notes as I traveled," admitted McCartney. "The officers got on my trail." He was arrested in Cincinnati, escaped, was recaptured in Illinois, and taken to jail in the state capital of Springfield. When the news reached Washington, D.C., an excited Herman Whitley hopped on a train and headed west. An ex-Union Army officer, Whitley was now chief of the United States Secret Service, a new government agency in charge of battling counterfeiters. He knew all about Pete McCartney and was eager to question him. Whitley's interview with the Connie man was a bit disappointing. McCartney offered to turn over his stash of bogus cash, but refused to squeal on other well-known counterfeiters. The chief got up to leave. "You won't leave me here, I suppose?" McCartney asked, seeming surprised. "Yes, for the present," said Whitley. "You're safe here." "Oh, I can get out of this place easy enough," McCartney said, grinning. "I've done so before, and I can do it again." "I guess not," Whitley said. "Where are you stopping, Colonel?" Whitley mentioned the name of his hotel. "Your number?" "Room 24. "Thank you," said McCartney. "I will call on you at 10. Whitley smiled. He could enjoy a good joke even from a crook. "Good night," he said. At 10 o'clock that night, Whitley was sitting at the desk in his hotel room writing up a report. There was a gentle knock on the door. "Come in," said the chief. The door opened. A voice sang out, "Good evening, Colonel." Whitley turned to his guest. "McCartney," he shouted, drawing his revolver. "How are you here?" "Put up your shooting iron, Colonel," McCartney said. "I merely called to pay my respects. I am going back, of course." And McCartney really did walk back to prison, smiling all the way. Herman Whitley never did figure out how McCartney got out of jail that night. However he did it, the stunt illustrated a serious challenge facing the U.S. government in the 1870s. The Secret Service was absolutely determined to catch counterfeiters and keep them behind bars. But Connie men were just as eager to get free, and they were good at it too. Chapter 1, The Operative. On a freezing morning in February 1875, Patrick Tyrrell hopped off a streetcar in downtown Chicago, Illinois. A massive fire had gutted the city just 4 years before, but Chicago was already roaring back to life. Stone buildings were rising all around, and the wide sidewalks were jammed with people in a hurry. Tyrrell stepped through the doors of the newly rebuilt Palmer House Hotel and stood in the cavernous lobby. With its shining marble, glittering chandeliers, and columns reaching up to soaring ceilings, the place looked more like an overgrown palace than a hotel. But Tyrrell wasn't here to admire the architecture. He asked a clerk for the room number of his boss, the new Secret Service chief, Elmer Washburn. A powerfully built man with thick black hair, Tyrrell had spent his adult life chasing down crooks as a Chicago detective. Now 44, he was one of the newest operatives of the United States Secret Service. He knew all about connie men like Pete McCartney. It was his job to put them out of business. The operative found Washburn's room, and the two men sat down to talk. The subject was the usual one: counterfeiters and how to nab them. Specifically, Washburn had taken the train from Washington to talk to Tyrrell about a particularly dangerous connie man, an expert engraver and brother-in-law to Pete McCartney. The man was an even bigger thorn in the government's side than McCartney. In fact, he was a threat to the nation's entire economic system. His name was Benjamin Boyd. I'm going to go ahead and stop there so that you can keep going with Lincoln's Grave Robbers. We have a copy here at the library that you can put a hold on through our website. Also through our website, this is available on audio from Hoopla, which is a free streaming service that you can find on our website. And our website is alamedafree.org. I hope you enjoyed the beginning of Lincoln's Grave Robbers enough that you want to read the rest of it. It's so much fun. All right, thanks so much, and we will see you next Friday. Bye-bye.